Do we have any questions from the audience?
Hi, this is a question to the folks from Lewisham. Hello, we're from Luton, so we're just up the road, but just outside of London. When you open up the voting to young people, the 20,000, how do you do that?
Okay, so basically in schools there will be like professionals and they'll have like the sheets with everybody's name on. They just tick it off, give you the ballot paper, just put it in the thing, like the box, and it's done.
Kids are outside of school, young people are outside of schools, maybe they're not.
So in terms of people, if you live in Lewisham but you're not in education in Lewisham, you can do a postal vote. But obviously, even if you miss school on the day of the election, you miss the election. So, yeah.
Thank you very much. We certainly seem to be inspired by the work that you are doing, and particularly with the project. And what I'm interested in looking at, you said you had a budget of 25,000, and you presented that to the projects to the mayor and also the cabinet. In terms of the delivery process, what kind of support do you have in order to ensure that you get the kind of outcomes that you want to achieve? Do you have an officer level support, or is that something that within your own structure you've developed?
So we have Katie and Malcolm who are sitting at this table here. They're like the youth workers who kind of help us throughout the whole process from beginning to end. You know, they help us with the campaigning, how to present the ideas. They help us, like they give us sections within our meetings to discuss the proposals, and it's then formatted by them, and we kind of, as young people, we communicate it to the cabinet, but it's kind of pulled together by Katie and Malcolm, really.
Okay, hello. I'm Niels. I'm working here at SALAR. My experience from engaging youth people and working together with schools from Sweden is that the schools are often a bit reluctant to the ideas and projects that outsiders come up with. So can you give any ideas or tips on how to make it to join forces with the schools so you can work together?
So, do you want to, perhaps? Do you want to address it to the whole panel? Yeah.
Anyone who feels they have a good answer.
So.
Yeah, I think, so there are a couple things. So one, in terms of getting on the same side of folks in schools, there are a few entry points. You could think about an individual school, you could think about an entire district, or you can think about the entire state, right, that's providing education. And there are different strategies for each, but I think a big piece of this at this point is we have a proven concept. So for example, in the city of New York, PB just got rolled out to every high school in the entire city, which is huge, and also means that every high school is going to have a $2,000 budget to do participatory budgeting. So this is another opportunity to demonstrate a proven concept, but as we bring this and scale it across the country, we have to think critically about that entry point, whether it is an individual school, an entire district, or a larger region.
Do you have any experience from Portugal?
In Portugal, I think we have the same problem, but well, we have two approaches. One, it's developed this PB inside of the schools. It's more easy, in my opinion, but we have the same problem that you mentioned. And the second approach is to develop this process outside. It means on the community. And here we have a problem of communication, how we can mobilize the young people for this process. So with these two approaches, I think it's more easy to organize inside of the school, even we have the same difficulties that you mentioned.
Hello, my name is Paula. I'm the mayor of the city of Ale. In our processes with the youth democracy, we find that we tend to have the same problems as with adult democracy issues. There are youth with strong cultural capital that already sort of have a voice or have educated parents or things that tend to be more active also in the youth forums. What sort of strategies have you used to reach out to all of the community and get youth from more disadvantaged circumstances to also participate and be part of the processes?
So I'm going to tie in both the questions because So in some schools in Lewisham, the head teachers are quite resentful about letting not only one, but potentially, like even in my school, there were 6 candidates from the same school in the year that I ran. So there were quite a lot of us, and all of us came from different backgrounds. But I think naturally, the program itself inspires people. So I was just inspired by the fact that I could do that. Like before I ran, probably about 2 months beforehand, that was when I got into politics and kind of speaking my mind and the fact that you can do something about things that aren't right. But beforehand, not so much. I was really shy and reserved. But I think naturally, just from seeing previous candidates and the way that the Young Mayors Programme works, the way that it's always around you. Like there's posters everywhere, there's candidates everywhere, and you just kind of become part of it and you realize how important it is and that it works. And naturally, I think people are inspired by it, even if they don't feel that they have the necessary requirements to do so.
I think a big part of this question is explicitly naming who we're talking about. And so part of your question was, how do we reach hard to reach folks? Well, we have to acknowledge and name what that means and who those people are. And the other question is, who should be acknowledging and naming who is hard to reach? And if we're talking about a youth process, and in Boston it was in the entire city, we turned to young people and said, who's not at the table that needs to be? They identified the LGBTQ community. They identified low-income individuals. They identified traditionally underserved neighborhoods. They identified formerly and currently incarcerated folks and those that were court involved. And so then we were able to name what those populations were, and then the young people built strategies for how to engage them. And part of it was, let's get individuals that already have connections to court-involved youth and ask if we can have a conversation. And they facilitated that with their brilliance and their connections.
Can I just ask a question for Torsby? Could you see a difference in engagement depending on what kind of backgrounds the kids were from? You mentioned there were 2 schools.
No, I can't see that. We only had 2 times, so it's too early to say something about that.
Yes. Thank you.
I'm Eve, and it's absolutely fascinating. I mean, what you've been telling us. I was just wondering, mainly in Boston or Lewisham, what have been the main obstacles that you've faced, the difficulties that you had? And, or was it all smooth? Because listening to you, it looks like it was all very easy. And I doubt it was. So maybe if you can share with us this. And another thing is, the first PB for youth was in 97 in Brazil. Over the last 20 years at least, 200, 300 PB for youth in Latin America, and still today. So it might be very interesting for them and for you maybe to connect and to learn from each other, because what you're saying, I'm sure, would inspire them. And what they do would inspire you for sure, and it would be very rich. So maybe this could be the sort of project that they were dreaming with in Latin America, to connect with others. And that could be part of a PB project as well, to get out of the 25,000 maybe one day, to connect with this world, because I see a big gap. And these are the same, all youth, and it's fine to travel and know other horizons. Thank you.
So Eve, I just want to remind myself and everyone else what your question was, and that was, it seems easy, but were there obstacles? And the answer is yes. I think that one of the biggest obstacles I faced when I first went out into community in Boston and said, hey, we're going to do PB, how would you spend $1 million? People didn't believe me. They were like, they said a lot of things that I can't say right now on this stage. But that was the biggest challenge that I had. And these were folks that I knew and trusted, so I'm a community organizer and activist. And as soon as I said, hey, the mayor has $1 million that he wants you to spend, I lost all credibility. because they had never heard of anything like that before, and people have been lied to and misled before. And so I think the biggest challenge was actually finding young ambassadors to lead this process. And the beauty of doing this work in Boston was we had an amazing, active Mayor's Youth Council that was already that team of ambassadors that could be deployed and had trust in community. So the problem was I didn't need to be doing the talking. They did.
Do you have any experience of obstacles from Portugal, or is it just the smooth way?
I think we have the same obstacles that the colleagues mentioned. And, well, but just to add something about the other question. In Portugal, the municipalities that are made this process inside of schools, in a partnership with schools, they try to negotiate the program before the elective year starts. This is very important because the schools have a program for all the year. It's very close, very strong, so it's not easy to put other elements inside. So, we have here people from, for example, Cascais, Isabel and Joanna. They negotiate a program in these conditions. It's not easy, but it's possible. And I think in this case, in a logistical point of view, it's the most, the biggest problem we have, I think.
So how is it in Lewisham? Do you have any obstacles?
My biggest obstacle was talking out to people. Like, if there's a bunch of people in the room, I couldn't do it. Well, I've gained more confidence now, but before, when I was actually running for Young Mayor, I had to do assemblies in different schools. And every single assembly I'd done, I messed up. Or I stopped, and I just couldn't start again. So I've gained a lot of confidence talking to you all today.
So, I think we have time for maybe 2 more questions. So,
thank you. Good afternoon, and thank you to the presenters for the inspiration. I'm curious about the online versus presential voting regarding participatory practices, and because you're dealing with youth, and sometimes we all assume that youth equals digital. It's not the case in Cascais, Portugal, so I can answer for that part of the question. The youth, the students at the schools that were involved in PB rejected any kind of digital voting, any kind of online system. But I would really like to know about the other experiences that you've described, and when there is voting involved. Do you use online voting, or SMSs, or presential voting like a ballot, or a mix of all? Thanks.
The short answer is all of the above. And it's like in the city of Boston, young people said, we want access to a variety of things, and we want to be able to cast our ballots in person. And so in that instance, it was customized for what young people identified. And in other communities, it's drastically different. But we had online voting where young people who were in school were able to log in with their school ID and get credentialed. We had the opportunity for them to text in a number to get access to the ballot and get credentialed. And we had the opportunity for them to walk up to a polling location. And polling was open for 2 weeks. So that was a combination of things that really created access for a large geographic citywide area, especially because this process was not housed in one building. And so when we identify that there are court-involved youth and gang-involved youth that can't be in the same room, we had to come up with solutions that would create access and opportunity for that as an example.
So, I think I'll take the last question because, yeah. Okay, then Luton. But then I'll have the last question.
I mean, listening to all of the stories, I think it is truly inspirational and kind of it gives us energy because we're looking at restarting a process in Luton. But we talked about obstacles. What's the thing that you're most proud of in terms of the things that you've done around engaging young people in this process? Something from each of them, what they're most proud of.
Yes, and that was actually my last question too. Oh, I love you, Luton. So, I guess we can start. Perhaps a sentence or two each before we round this up. What are you most proud of during the work you have been doing?
I would say allowing myself to kind of restart and really establish what is important to me and to realize who I am, kind of, yeah, my identity.
I'm most proud of talking to young people about what they want and how I could go about doing that.
I'm most proud of the moment when people realize that young people are not future leaders, and PB proves that they're leaders now, and that clicks for folks.
I'm most proud of that the young students could give proposals and vote, and it was a good result. And everyone liked it in Torsby, and that was just amazing.
Well, I find in all processes very good aspects, but if I have to mention one, makes me proud. I think it is the opportunity to make part of different teams. In the case of, for example, Cascais, to make part of this team that creates a young PB where the students could define the rules of the process. This was very, very important, I think.
So, before we bring in the water bottles for you as well, as a thanks for presenting your work, I think we should give them a huge applaud for presenting what they are doing at home.